You raise some very, very interesting points there, not least the disappearance of the bees, the colony collapse. Are they linked to the mobile phone industry?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll tell you why. There are numerous papers now from beekeeping professors and scientists, and there is a brilliant mathematical paper which I read that everything about the poor bee is designed to be irritated by microwaves. The distance between the antenna, the size of the brain, the size of the body, they will all suffer resonance or unnatural vibration from microwave irradiation. The immune systems will collapse. The directional finding mechanism of the bee is destroyed. But what the industry and the governments will say is that not a single bee has been killed by microwave irradiation. And technically, they are correct. The same that we can say that not a single person has died from AIDS. Technically, that is correct. What we do know from analysis of bees, and we have the papers to show this, is that when the bees are found, they have 5 or 6 different infections, including invasion by the Varroa mite. But when the blood and the body is analysed, they find 5 or 6 infections, which clearly indicate that the bees have suffered massive immune symptom suppression and invasion by the Varroa mite. The same that people suffer immune system suppression from AIDS, and then it is whatever virus or bacteria comes along that actually kills you. But there can be absolutely not a shred of doubt that microwave irradiation is disorientating the bees and the birds and other flying insects, and there are 250 of them that pollinate plants. There can be not a shred of doubt that the microwave communications industry is responsible. And there is even, apart from the research, absolute concrete evidence of proof. You can go to any research paper, anywhere in the world, pick it up and look at the experiments that have been carried out on cells. And most of them have been carried out on small mammals, insects, birds, even bigger mammals. And they have found cancers, immune system problems, this, and this. And it's documented. So the problem is you have these huge laboratories and they say, well, we have found that microwaves will cause this and this and this, and here are all the list of the animals we used. But they forget one crucial sentence. They forget to say, aha, but these microwaves are actually outside the laboratory, and the animals are outside the laboratory. Therefore, we are going to damage the world's ecosystems and the environment because we've proved it here, now it's going to go on out there. And you can go to any research paper and you will see thousands and tens of thousands of experiments carried out on animals that show all of this. And it goes on outside. And there can be absolutely no doubt. And we can take this right back to the government proof from the government scientists, 50s, 60s and 70s.
Why then do the governments continue to say it's the mites, it's a virus, it's the pesticides?
I think, and I'm coming back to my silly boy mentality, governments are usually only in for 4 years, or 5 years. And this is such a lucrative benefit for the people. This is my own theory. I believe that certainly for the UK government and some other governments, the ordinary members of Parliament are really powerless. Because like when we've had members of Parliament standing up saying we've had child cluster of leukemia cluster after leukemia cluster, and I have a list of something like 200 clusters, not 200 children, 200 leukemia clusters around transmitters, mostly near schools. And the MPs have stood up and asked about this, and at the end a minister stands up and says we are within international guidelines, sits down, and the whole thing is lost. So I believe that there are people above the ministers, maybe top civil servants, maybe top industrialists, I don't know, but I believe they are the real power behind what is going on, and they can direct governments. And I really believe that the governments do not have a choice. It comes down in a threatening way from people who really have power. And I believe that is the problem. And we're back to my silly boy. When you look at the chief of our MI6 and our Prime Minister, as I said, who were wondering what nappies were for when we were making the real decisions, and they do not have the wherewithal to come and talk to people like me. And I'm sure if they did, we could change things, but they won't see me, and that's the way it is. And I think that is the problem. They are only in for 4 or 5 years. They can live with it. They will get their knighthoods. They will get their reward, whatever their reward is, and they will pass the problem on to the next person. And I think that is the problem, is that they are not directly accountable. They inherited the problem, they will reap some of the benefits, they will pass it on. They are not being held directly responsible. If there was a law that said every civil servant involved in this and everybody who makes a decision, if there was a single death from microwave radiation, we would have you in court and we would try you. And if you're guilty for manslaughter, you would go to jail. I'm sure they would change their minds, but they won't. They are immune. They can get away with it. They're only in for however long. And my impression, and I may be biased and angry and old and stupid, but my impression is that the leaders, they like to go around the world, shake hands, convince the world that they are making treaty after treaty after treaty, not one of which has succeeded, but they take all the accolades and they come back and they pass on the problem to the next person. And I think that is the problem with the government, is that they will not be accountable, that they are immune from this.
Thank you. I read recently that the honeybee in West Sussex in England is on the verge of extinction. What implication does it have for the rest of the environment should the honeybee become extinct?
It varies country to country. If you take a country like Africa that I was in earlier this year, they have lost whole fields, and their fields can be the size of one of our counties. They have lost whole fields of honeybees. Now, the honeybee tends to pollinate vitamin C producing plants. So in countries like Africa that relies on its own produce to eat, they are going to lack vitamin C, which means they now run the risk of scurvy. which means they have to start importing vitamin C. Globally, if we were to lose all of our pollinating insects, it has been estimated that if and this was published in Nature, if the total world's ecosystems break down, the cost would be about 33,000 billion United States dollars a year on the price of food. So what would happen is food would become so expensive that the poor wouldn't be able to afford it. And in our country, what it actually means, if we lose the bee, and if we lose the bee, we also lose the other pollinating insects, because what affects one insect actually affects all of the others, right down to ants. If we lose them, we have to start importing food. Now, if I can give you an analogy of how this would affect a country globally, and I know this to be correct. We're in Germany. So let's say that for Germany, we look at the situation for Germany from the telecommunications industry's effect. Let's say there are 60 million cell phones in Germany. And let's say the average bill is €1 a day. Germany is now losing 60 million euros every single day to the 4 main telecommunication industries. So 60 million is going out every day, and that's not coming back. Now you have the medical bills of the people, which is between 3 and 15%, the medical bills of the people who are sick, that cannot work. Now you have Germany's share of 33 trillion United States dollars at its extreme end. So if you start looking at the price of food is going to rocket, the price of healthcare is going to rocket, and you've got this money flowing out, any child in the bottom primary school maths class, if you say, here is your money box, this is what is coming in, this is what is going out, this is what is going out, and this is what is going out, any child will say, my money box, sooner or later, is going to be empty. And this is going to happen to Germany and any country in the world, and I don't care which country it is. At the rate you are losing money to the industry, at the rate that you are going to start importing food, the rate you are going to have your healthcare costs, which means importing more drugs, so the pharmaceutical industry are going to benefit on an enormous scale with the communications industry here. Any country, depending over how much time, has to go bankrupt. Any country, and I don't care who they are. And the added effect is the carbon footprint from all of this. It was shown that a couple of years ago, some scientists, and there were 3 papers published on this, and they all came up roughly with the same result. A couple of years ago, it was shown that the carbon released into the atmosphere needed to power all of the cell phones, all of the transmitters, all of the Wi-Fi, everything comes to about 110.7 million tons of carbon dioxide a year. It's the equivalent of 29 million cars every year going onto the roads. And what that makes now, especially with Wi-Fi going everywhere, they're trying to Wi-Fi entire cities. What this means is that the telecommunications industry produces more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than the aviation industry. It is the biggest polluter of the planet in terms of carbon dioxide, and not a single word has been said against the telecommunications industry. We hear lots about not building more airports, not building more runways. In the United Kingdom, our government has said they're going to put 7 pence or 8 pence on each gallon of petrol to cut down the amount drivers are driving, to cut down the carbon footprint. But not a single word has been published by any government anywhere in the world against the telecommunications industry. And the result of all of this carbon dioxide, and this has been published in Scientific American this year, and it's not just from this industry, it is all the industries. Carbon dioxide, you're a doctor, you will know this, carbon dioxide and water together produce carbonic acid. So the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere sinking onto the oceans and the seas, they have actually changed. They're not changing, they have changed the acidity of the oceans and the seas. And the microbes and the fish in the seas have a very, very low tolerance for the alkalinity and acidity of water. And what we are now doing is we are physically destroying all of the living species in our oceans and our seas. And the telecommunications industry is the major polluter now, and not a single person is doing anything about it to stop them. In fact, they're doing as much as they can to encourage them to make it worse. In London, the mayor has boasted that he is going to turn the whole of the city into a Wi-Fi zone for the 2012 Olympics. Now, other cities are also trying to be Wi-Fi. We're trying to get every single school, it seems, in the Western world Wi-Fi. And all this can do is exacerbate the problem we have with the environment, the problem we have with the oceans, and the bottom line, and we have the proof, we have absolute, indisputable proof, and it goes back to 1971, which is when we had it, and everything since has confirmed it. We had it, and what we are doing is we are physically destroying not just our children's health by illness and genetic illness, we are destroying the health of the planet, we are destroying every living being, from the largest mammal in the oceans to the smallest slime mold in the soil. We are destroying slowly, well, not even slowly now, we are destroying everything because this industry is not being controlled by governments. And that is the problem.
That has such far-reaching and massive implications. You're saying it's not just brain tumours, it's not just leukemias. We're talking about total collapse
Absolutely.
of our environment, all ecological systems collapsing.
Absolutely. I mean,
we're talking worse than nuclear war.
Much worse than nuclear war. Absolutely. And as a doctor, you will know this, that when you look at human cells, animal cells, plant cells, even bacteria cells. When you look and you go down to the genetic structure and look at what the genetic structure is made of, there is absolutely no difference at all between at the atomic and nuclear level. There is no difference between what we are all made of. Every living thing in the oceans, on land, every living thing is made of exactly the same small particles. So if you are damaging humans, and we had all the government proof we wanted in the 70s, it stands to reason that you're going to damage the animals that are made of the same, and the plants that are made of the same, and the oceans that are made of the same. You're going to damage everything. And I wish somebody in government would actually talk to somebody like me, and credit where it's due. Some governments have sent for me and asked me to explain this, and some royal families and leaders of communities, and there are now countries in the world that are reducing levels and trying to change things. But the Western commercial governments, the UK especially, not only are they not trying to control this, but before our last government left a few months ago, they gave the industry permission to increase its power threefold, and we already had the highest levels on the planet. So they are encouraging the industry. Where these people think they're going to go and live when they have their knighthoods and all of this money and whatever other trappings, Rolls Royces and yachts they think they've got, where they think they're going to take them to live, I don't know. Maybe they haven't thought that far ahead. And maybe they should come and talk to us. But they are going to end up living on the same planet, and their generations are going to end up paying the same price as our generations.
Truly, truly disturbing stuff. Would you like to explain a little bit about breast cancer and microwaves?
Breast cancer is not totally understood. Research has shown that microwaves seem to induce breast cancer in women, but not in men. Very, very rarely in men. Now, there are a few reasons we believe for this. We know that from epidemiological studies, and they have specifically said at the end of an epidemiological studies when they look at cancers, and in fact there's one here in Berlin, they said that there was a 7-fold increase in breast cancers in women. But most of the epidemiological studies you look at, they say there is generally an increase in 8 different types of cancer, specifically breast cancer in women. And whether because the breasts are bigger than men, the mammary cells absorb more radiation. I have been told today by Karen that she read an article, and I did mention this, that the metal in bras, the cups which are parabolically shaped in bras, they are metal. And women tend to carry the phones in a bag over the shoulder, which transmit straight through the breast. Your phones can transmit when they're on standby, but these days they can be made to transmit even when they're totally off. So assume if you've got a phone, it is transmitting all day and all night. Now, women tend to carry them over a shoulder bag into the breast. Now, we know, and this cannot be disputed, that metal will absorb microwaves. It's why you cannot put metal into a microwave oven. When the metal absorbs microwaves, it re-emits it straight away. So it's coming in and going out straight away. And it re-emits it at a slightly different wavelength. And we don't know what that wavelength is. I haven't seen a paper that has measured it, but we know it's being emitted. So what you have, and we know this cannot be disputed, we know that if the bra of a lady is being microwaved, the metal cups will be absorbing the microwaves. They have to do that. We know they will be re-emitting it in a parabolic focus. So what you will have with your cup is the waves will be reflected like a magnifying glass into a small area. So the area may be a few hundred or a few thousand mammary cells big. I would like to see, I know Karen said that there is a paper, I haven't seen one published, the research may be in for peer review, but it would be a very, very good experiment for a PhD student to do, send to somebody like Nature and have peer reviewed. But theoretically, what we can argue is the microwaves are being reflected with a parabolic focal point somewhere in the mammary cells in the breast. And that is what we believe may be causing the increased breast cancer in women. Any epidemiological study will show that women get more breast cancer when they are microwaved, anyone. And in fact, a really good experiment, and you were there when I spoke, Doctor, at Swindon. I mentioned a really clever study carried out in Estonia, where two professors, and this was published in the Australasian Journal for Environmental Health, it was published in there. They took a whole country, Estonia, and they looked at all of the cancers and all of the people and all of the health, two professors. Then the mobile industry moved in, and then years later they looked at the cancers again, and they found an increase of all of the main types of cancer, and their conclusion was that the telecommunications industry was responsible. And they also said a very interesting sentence, which I've since read in other papers, that women are more susceptible than men. A, because of the breast tissue, and B, because women have much more complicated hormonal systems, the reason for which isn't scientifically fully understood yet.